DeRoche, the CEO of Family Policy Alliance. The fight to protect children in our nation continues to grow. Children are undergoing life-changing surgeries in an attempt to change their gender. Others are taking medication to help them look more like another gender. What are Christians to do in response to this? Today, I'm bringing you the story of one courageous woman in the medical profession who has stood up for the rights of children at risk. And that's not as easy as it might sound to do in America in 2024. Vanessa Savidge, a registered nurse at the Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, the largest children's hospital in America, landed her dream job there. However, she soon discovered questionable practices that led her to speak out. Her whistleblower efforts led to a national attention to the issues of gender surgeries for children, but have come at a great personal cost to Vanessa. Vanessa joins us today to discuss the story that she shared at our SoCon Conference this year in Washington, D.C. Folks, it had the audience in tears, including my wife and other friends that were there in attendance. This is devastating, but she has a powerful message, and she's really serving the Lord by speaking up here. Vanessa, welcome to our program.
Oh, it's an honor to be with you. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, so let's begin with what happened. Briefly walk us through the story of your first encountered children, when you first encountered the children going through gender transition.
Absolutely. Well, I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and graduated from nursing school in 2015. And like you mentioned in your introduction, I truly did feel as if I had landed my dream job at Texas Children's Hospital in 2018. And a few years into that role, I accepted a new position in a pediatric multi-specialty clinic in which there were transgender children coming to the clinic to be seen on a weekly basis by doctors. And it was a very difficult thing for me as a person of faith, as a Christian, to observe how these children were coming into the clinic completely healthy, but very confused about their sex and their identity. And they would walk out with a prescription for a cross-sex hormone or a puberty blocker. And I remember in particular, one day I was asked by this particular doctor to go into a patient's room to teach them how to administer an intramuscular injection. And this was not an uncommon request. This was something that nurses do all the time. We do patient teaching and education. But what I didn't realize was that this patient was going to utilize what I taught him to administer estrogen to himself at home to affirm the false identity he had adopted for himself. And that realization was devastating to me. In addition to that, I was seeing and interacting with parents of these patients, many of whom, specifically the girls, the teenage girls, were, had a variety of other issues going on. Many of them were on anti-anxiety medications. They were depressed, autistic, and many of them had been to the emergency room for a previous suicide attempt, which was just a devastating thing for me to realize, that these children truly had so much inner turmoil occurring. And so I was at a crossroads, and I almost quit on multiple occasions until the Texas Attorney General in 2022 issued a statement that essentially condemned, transgender treatments and hormones, so that any doctor or any hospital that was providing these treatments could be investigated for child abuse. And so I was very encouraged by that our governor and our legislature had taken a stance. And very quickly, the hospital, made multiple public statements stating that they were shutting down the program, that they were no longer providing hormones to children. And of course, as we all know now, that was a lie, that they continued to do that behind closed doors, that children were continuously being harmed because of their confusion. And so that led us to March to May of 2023, when a whistleblower came forward to reveal that the existence of this program was ongoing, and that the hospital, despite its multiple statements stating that it was no longer providing these treatments, had continued to provide these treatments to children.
And that is what stuns people the most. A lot of our audience has been awakened to the fact that government actors and school districts, hospitals, institutions that traditionally have been held to a standard by the media and by the government regulators of speaking the truth. Now, really ever since COVID, and to me, this is my comments, where you make up science once, and apparently people can make it up for everything. And so I just want to help with Vanessa here, orient our audience that is newer to these transgender fights and the work that you support. Thank you. This opportunity would not have existed. Vanessa just reminded you, unless the governor of Texas had been informed on the policy level to intervene in this because of our national movement that this Family Policy Alliance, through your support, has been able to help lead for nearly a decade now to protect children. That's made its way to the healthcare workers, and it gave them hope. Because Vanessa, you went to medical school. This is not one of the questions I was going to ask you, but I want to start with the start. How disorienting it must be that you went to medical school to help people. And most children, thanks be to God, are healthy and growing on their own without medical intervention. And that's how they present themselves to you. These kids in the transgender clinic were probably not suffering from chronic biological diseases, but when they leave the clinic, these doctors were saddling them with lifelong need for medical intervention and treatment. So they're making them less healthy by definition of medicine. I just want to ask a question. Is that one of the reasons why this was so disorienting to you when you saw what they were doing in the clinic?
Yes, absolutely. That and several other reasons. I would say that everything you just mentioned is absolutely correct. I would add to that a couple of things. Number one, transgender medicine is a highly lucrative industry. It essentially creates a medical patient for life for the medical industrial complex. It puts a child down a path of, medications that are so harmful physically and psychologically for them. The longer that they're on these cross-sex hormones, that the more damage is inflicted that is irreversible. And the second thing is I would add that, the majority of parents who walk into a gender clinic with their confused child are well-meaning and well-intentioned and love their child so very deeply. And unfortunately, they are ill-equipped in today's culture, affirming the transgender movement, the medical model that embraces and promotes transgender ideology in almost every hospital in the nation, that these parents are ill-equipped to handle what is going to be thrown at them with the medical industrial complex and its power fully on board with transitioning children. And so it's a very intimidating thing for a parent who is in a clinic room, and a doctor walks in a white lab coat and has multiple degrees hanging from the wall. And the parent is informed that if the child is not allowed to transition to the opposite sex because of their confusion, that they will harm themselves or they will commit suicide. And that is the most egregious form of emotional blackmail that the medical industry has ever peddled to parents. It's horrific. And so many parents, unfortunately, are convinced and manipulated that this is in the best interest of their child. But nothing could be further from the truth.
And statistically, that bears itself out. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I want to jump right to what you did about it. So you get your confidence level up, you do some research, you have a degree in nursing. So you're a smart person, you have advanced college degrees, and you look into being a whistleblower. And God bless America, because there's whistleblowers in nearly every industry, protection statutes to allow people to blow the whistle when they don't like what's going on. The administration of the largest children's hospital in the world is lying to the global media, and they're doing these things. Folks, it's as ridiculous as somebody presenting himself to a nurse or doctor saying, my nose is my ear, and convincing the doctors that that is true, right? And the whistleblowers say, you know what, this is crazy and it's going on in our hospital. Vanessa, tell us what happened. You're expecting confidentiality. You're expecting professionalism. You're just expecting not an outcome maybe, but your voice to be heard before you quit or make other choices in your life. And what was the response when you became a whistleblower?
Absolutely. Well, I came forward anonymously in May of 2023 without my name. I did not reveal my name or my identity at the time, but I just came forward to affirm what a previous whistleblower had come forward to reveal. And that is that the hospital had been secretly continuing its robust transgender program, had been concealing that from lawmakers, from the public, and from parents, and that children were still very much being treated inside the hospital walls. And I knew this to be true because I was working in the clinic where this was taking place. And so I came forward anonymously in May, never imagining what would happen 2 months later. In July of 2023, I'll never forget, it was a Monday evening. I was having dinner at home with my family and some friends, and there was a knock on our front door. And my husband and I opened the door only to discover 2 federal agents who were asking to speak with me about issues at my work. And they flashed their badges and said they were from the FBI. And they informed me that I was a person of interest in an investigation targeting a whistleblower because, according to them, this whistleblower had broken HIPAA confidentiality laws by revealing patient information to the public and had violated the law. And so they were wanting to recruit my help to expose this previous whistleblower's identity to the world. And we all know now that this whistleblower, of course, is Dr. Eitan Heim, who courageously came forward before me. But at the time, I didn't know who this person was or anything about him. I just knew that what he had come forward to courageously reveal was true. And I remember this interaction with these 2 FBI agents because it was probably one of the most terrifying encounters. They told me that they had come to my home because they knew of what I believed. They knew of my beliefs against transgender medicine. They also told me that if I didn't help them, that they could no longer protect me. And so they issued a series of veiled threats. They threatened my safety and my work. And even with all of what they said, which was very fear-inducing for both my husband and I, they left that day. And I looked at my husband as soon as they had left, and I told him, we will never help them. And I do not regret anything that I've said or done up to this point. We will never help them in their investigation. And so that's really when we turned to our faith in God, because that experience left us very, as it would to anyone. I think it's just a very fear-inducing anxiety. It really makes you nervous and scared of what's to come and the unknowns of the future. And that's when we read Ephesians 5. And Ephesians 5 says, have nothing to do with the worthless deeds of evil and darkness, but instead expose them, because everything exposed by the light becomes visible. And so instead of giving into the fear and to the uncertainty, we decided to speak out from a place of faith and conviction.
And it's such an inspiration to me and so many other folks. Our audience, I want you to be aware that what we're going through in America right now is revolutionary. And when there's a revolution going on, and a population of people don't participate in it, there's usually a name given to them in the rearview mirror. And the name that they assign to people that do not participate in the revolution are victims. They're the victims of the revolution. In America right now, both political parties are running to say that the government can decide when life begins and what you can do with life. They're now saying that children who can't vote, can't buy cigarettes, can't drive a car, can't fight in the military, can make a lifelong decision on what kind of person that they want to be. We have an entire juvenile justice system, folks, because we acknowledge that their brains are not developed. The entire juvenile justice system, but when it comes to their childhood, the civil rights of having a childhood, we tell them that's no longer available in America. And when somebody fights to protect that childhood, we send the FBI there. This is thuggery, folks. This is many of our audience know, Vanessa, that I worked for Prison Fellowship for a decade. I was arrested out of my house on the charge that was thrown out. It took me 3 years to show the prosecutor for what that prosecutor was. We see what Donald Trump is going through right now, and it just breaks my heart to hear that our FBI and our justice system is continuing to be perverted to, and I just want to say this, folks, not a lot of people know what extortion is, but it's a business model of our justice in America right now. It's when you create a problem for somebody and then you offer them the solution.
Yes.
That's what racketeering is. Okay. And that's what they prosecute the bad guys for, racketeering. But in this case, the FBI shows up at her house, presents her with a problem, and then offers her a solution. And all she has to do is give up her belief in Jesus Christ, her entire life in building a career to being a nurse, and she has to destroy the lives of the people that she serves permanently. Folks, sorry for the commentary there on a bit of a tangent, but I want to orient you to where we are today and why Vanessa's on this call and why this matters. And what can people do? That's the thing that I want to go to next, Vanessa. You've been through a lot, and I endured a lot myself. That was a long time ago, folks, 15 years ago nearly now that I endured this. But Vanessa's going through a lot. So I'd like to talk about your is it GoFund? No, it's Give, Send, Go, which is obviously a much more reliable platform than the link platform. And we're going to share that link right now. But tell us about the support from, it's not just Christians, the American community that's getting behind you now, because we want to help you with that.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's important for people to understand what has happened since then. I wish the story ended there, but a month ago on August 16th, Texas Children's Hospital fired me, and they did so in retaliation for my decision to come forward publicly this time with my name and my identity as a whistleblower to expose that the hospital had been using Texas Medicaid dollars to cover transgender treatments and cross-sex hormones. And this is in violation of state law. Our Texas Medicaid policy is extremely clear that no form of gender-affirming, quote-unquote, gender-affirming care for minors should be reimbursed, should be covered. And that has been in place since almost 2015, so almost 10 years ago, that's been in place. And I discovered that the hospital, was using taxpayer dollars to fund these procedures, and that is illegal. And so I came forward to bring that to light with Christopher Rufo, a journalist, and that was back in June. When I came forward publicly in June, obviously, the hospital promptly placed me on leave. They announced that I was under investigation, and 2 months later, in August, they illegally terminated my employment. As you said at the beginning, whistleblowers are supposedly protected under law, and it's illegal for any organization or hospital to retaliate against a whistleblower for coming forward in good faith, and yet the hospital ignored that. And so since that time, since I've been fired, I have retained the Burke Law Group, to help me in this legal fight, because I do want to challenge this in court. And I feel like this was a violation of the law and a violation of Title VII, which says that employers cannot discriminate based on religion. And that's exactly what happened. And so I am so very grateful for the public's outpouring of support, for their donations on my Give, Send, Go. And I'm just so overwhelmed with gratitude, because this is going to be a long fight. But I do believe that this is what has to happen.
So we are, folks, Give, Send, Go. You can see the link. We're posting it here, wherever this is posted. But Give, Send, Go /nurse_whistleblower is the link. And remember, Vanessa is a nurse whistleblower, and we hope that more nurses and doctors get courage from both you and Dr. Ethan Heim, because folks, it's got to be disorienting working in all these professions. But please remember that we had a remarkably different culture in 2015. None of these made up things were even talked about. And the pathway back to sanity in our culture is to stand up and say these things. The lies are going to get revealed, and it's going to destroy everything they're trying to build anyway, because they're building on sand, their foundation. It's just a matter of how quickly we can overturn this evil ideology, because what's at stake is hundreds of thousands of children that are not being protected by their school district and their parents right now, or the medical, the traditional legacy medical groups. And so Family Policy Alliance is trying to stand in the gap. We're trying to work with the medical professions that are, and people that are the whistleblowers that are staying true to their values, but we desperately need your help. So we want you to make Vanessa a priority in your life right now. This fall, we want you to support her, because folks, Riley Gaines did the same thing that Rosa Parks did, but she worked for 22 years to be on that stage. And Vanessa did the same thing. She didn't wake up in that morning and decide to become a nurse and get kicked out of there. She spent her entire adult life preparing for that. And they're disparaging her, and they're trying to destroy her career. And I hope that this video gets played for any jury in the future, because I am a conservative Republican, and I would award so much money to you, because this is such an egregious violation of your civil rights federally, your state civil rights, and statute in Michigan or in Texas. Sorry about that. And I'm just so grateful that you're willing to do this. So I hope that being able to come on shows and hear about that support gives you a little bit of wind in your sails. But how can we be praying for you now, Vanessa, in your family and those that you work with right now? You've had a lot of chances to talk about this. What can we be doing to help you besides contributing to you now as a fighter for, it's not Vanessa's fight, folks. She's fighting for the children that are being permanently disfigured. We can't go back once that knife hits the body, folks. And so we're in a race right now. How can we be helping?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would just say we would covet your prayers for wisdom to know how to navigate the coming weeks and months. We're committed to fighting this in a court of law, but that is very costly and it takes a lot of resources. And so we would just covet prayers for wisdom as we navigate that.
Yeah. Well, we will. You have them, Vanessa. And folks, we hope that you continue to pray for children. I'm going to say this, and it might be hard for some people to hear, but this is what I believe happened to myself. When I was a teenager and I was full of fear and anger and shame and guilt, I was being raised in an alcoholic household. I turned to alcohol for my solution. I had friends turn to anabolic steroids when they couldn't make the football team and they wanted to be stronger for the ladies. People try all sorts of solutions when they're children that permanently hurt their bodies. Our culture understood that for hundreds of years. This is a fever dream of some rich LGBTQ ideologues that are fueling the most disastrous thing in our country's history. But it's going to show us what rock bottom looks like in the rearview mirror to this. And so let's support Vanessa. Let's make an example out of this Texas Children's Hospital as a movement, because this is about protecting the children that within 10 or 15 years, they're going to have a lot of questions. Where were our parents and our grandparents? Where were the licensing bodies of these medical societies during this time period? It's important we take names right now and we build in the policy protection so this can never happen in America again. Thank you, Vanessa, for being with us.